Hey guys, today we're talking about Plastic Gen and why no one talks about it. So Beyblade's been around a long time, since 1999, but the bulk of the conversation about Beyblade is around Metal Fight or Burst, and part of that is due to the growth of social media. By the time YouTube started becoming really big back in 2009, 2010, Metal Fight was coming out, so the conversation around plastic just kind of dropped off as everybody's interest transitioned into Metal Fight, and then after Metal Fight, straight into Burst. So Plastic Gen never really had an opportunity to see the same sort of growth on social media that the previous series did. I think a lot of people assume that they're just not good, or maybe they're too fragile to use, or they're too expensive. None of which I think actually apply. Of course, there are certain Beyblades that are more fragile in every series, and Plastic Gen is no exception. However, for the most part, they're pretty durable, and they have a ton of gimmicks. Plastic Gen introduced a lot of stuff that was carried over into other series, and it also introduced stuff that we haven't seen since. It's a really fun series to mess around with, and it offers, I think, more customization than any other series. The gameplay for Plastic Gen is really fun. It's really high recoil. There's a lot of really interesting shapes in Plastic Gen, a lot of really interesting attack rings, a lot of size variation for the weight discs, and of course the tips. There's so much stuff. There's rubber sharps, rubber flats, small rubber flats, big rubber flats, there's bearing tips, there's all kinds of stuff. Stuff that we still haven't seen in other series, and then stuff that has shown up in Burst or Metal Fight. There's just a lot of cool stuff that you can do with this, and one of the limitations with the other series is that you can't change spin direction on every Beyblade, whereas with Plastic Gen, nearly every Beyblade you can change the spin direction by switching out the core. I would also argue that the anime is by far the best for Plastic Generation. The first and third season of Plastic Gen are peak Beyblade, and I think that is speaking without nostalgia. I really think that they are legitimately good, not just as Beyblade anime, but just as anime as in general. There's a lot of really interesting plot points. There's some really good character growth and character development, stuff that I didn't really feel like we got necessarily in some of the other series, like Metal Fight and Burst. Not hating on those series, but I do think Plastic Generation has the best plot. I think it has some of the best characters as well, and I definitely think it's worth checking out. You can watch all of it for free on YouTube. One of the things I'd like to see come back as well are the magnets. I think it's a really interesting feature that can add a lot to battles, especially if you're trying to repel or attract opponents for attack or for stamina or defense or whatever. It's really cool. Want to make a spin-stealing magnet core left spin bearing tip Beyblade? No problem. And as far as price goes, I would say that Plastic Gen is about the same price as all of the other generations. Obviously, there's some stuff that is more rare and more expensive, but in general, it's priced about the same. And again, I wouldn't say that they are necessarily any more fragile. Some of the really early stuff is, but that applies to every generation. Some of the early single layer burst stuff and dual layer burst stuff is very fragile depending on the mold. And same thing with Metal Fight. There was mold revisions on Libra, Pegasus. There was stuff that broke, and that's just how it goes. That's part of Beyblade. You've got these things, hitting each other with a high amount of impact. Stuff breaks. I would like to cover more Plastic Gen stuff on my channel, but I don't know how much interest there is in it. So if you guys would let me know whether or not you would watch it, whether or not you find it interesting. I do really want to cover some history videos as well about sort of the conception of Beyblade and some of the first pieces of media. The first ever piece of Beyblade media was actually a Game Boy Color game, which I've been playing through, and I would like to do a review on and eventually a Let's Play on the channel if you guys would be interested in that. It's actually a legitimately fun game. It's probably in my top 5 Game Boy games ever. And that's saying something because I grew up with the Game Boy, so.
The other thing too that I really miss about Plastic Gen are the bit beasts. Each Beyblade has a bit chip on it, and on the bit chip is a bit beast, and each one of those has a different lore and is unique to the Beyblade, and is the explanation of power in the anime, which I always thought made more sense in Plastic Gen than in the other series. So if you guys are ever interested, for sure, check out the anime. It's on YouTube. You can watch all 3 seasons for free, including the movie, and it's good. The first season, the animation is a little dated, so you may have an issue with that, but if you can look past that, the story is so legitimately good, I think it's worth checking out. So we're going to do a quick battle with our spin stealing combo. This is left spin with the Magna Core and the bearing tip, and doing a light launch on our spin stealer here just to show that the same rules apply for Beyblade. Nothing changed over the years. Everything still works the same. It's just different system, different gimmicks. We'll give it a try against Galman, which has a free spinning sub-attack ring as its gimmick. This is one of the Beyblades from the White Tigers, or the Chinese team in Plastic Gen. I definitely think Plastic Gen also has the coolest grips. They're very neat looking. So drop a like, leave a comment what you thought of this video and whether or not you're going to give Plastic Gen a chance, and subscribe for future Beyblade content. Let me know if you'd be okay with Plastic Gen content popping up more.